Good evening and welcome back to the channel. So, it's been a minute since we put out an episode. Let me go ahead and give a refresher. So far we have done all of the low rank village quests, and on this one we're going to start tackling the low rank hub quests. That way low rank's just completely wiped out. And the only reason I'll have to visit it from this point out will be to go back and farm up materials to advance through some of the weapon trees. Now, first thing that we're going to end up doing in this episode is actually tackling a bunch of repeat quests. So for the repeat ones, we're not going to show the whole fight. I'm just going to clip through and jump to the end, explain exactly which one it is, and go from there. Alright, so first up is Kurupeko, and I forgot to include the portion where I actually accept the quest on that one, but same fight, no differences, just go in, beat him up, and try to interrupt the calls. Next fight is going to be Baroth. Same deal here. He doesn't really change. You can try to break any parts that you need. Depending on what weapons you need, you may want to take this as an opportunity to farm some stuff up. In general, the hub quests are going to take you a little bit longer to do than the equivalent village quests. So really you're better off farming in the village, including Rathian here. She's not any harder, not really any different than what you've fought before. So take her out, be happy, and move on. Contemplated doing Lagombi for a minute because at some point I'll need to go back and do the canteen quest to get upgrades to the mills. And as a small aside, when you're hunting Goble in this little area, which is the area that you happen to start out fighting Diablos in, that last plant before you walk to the next screen, you can harvest frogs off of it. And you'd use those if you wanted to fish him out of that the water in the next area. That's a little bit weird to get him to kind of latch onto it. It doesn't really help the fight all that much. So just beat him down and move on. And then we get the urgent to go into low rank hub 2 for Legiacruz. Same fight, same deal. You'll end up fighting him in the final area again. So bring some bombs with you because he does like to run away. And then finally a new fight. Now we get to take on a Diablos. This is in the desert at nighttime. One thing to note about the desert is whether it's day or night determines whether you need to take warm or cool drinks. If it's nighttime, you need something to warm you up. If it's daytime, you need something to cool you off. In low rank stuff, it still provides plenty of materials. I guess one tip for the future would be if for some reason you're low on Zenny or materials or whatever and you really need something to take on a quest, if you know it's a supply necessary to beat that quest, you can go into a low rank quest, and a lot of the times, like say hot drinks or cool drinks, they'll be in the supply chest, and you can just go through one or two times and get your supplies built back up for your box for whatever you need them for. Now, Diablos likes to charge around. That's sort of his thing, even more so than Rathian. But he does the same basic moves that almost everything with this particular body style does. But there's one cool thing that goes on here. If you stand in front of that pillar and you bait him over, then you basically get a free trap. And this is really best used to sit there and beat on his horn for a second. You could try to get around him to hit the tail, but he's not going to stay in super long. And I do believe you can continue to do this over and over until his horns are broken. I can't honestly remember offhand if he will stick with just one horn, but I know with two that you can basically repeat it. I don't think this is one of the places where that thing gets destroyed, because there are certain areas where you can get him stuck to stuff that it'll actually end up breaking whatever he's getting stuck to after he's done it once or twice. But I don't think that giant pillar of rock can actually get broken. I just think you end up breaking his horn before he can break it. And once his horns are broken, I don't think he can get trapped again, but I could be wrong on that. I know it's a little bit tricky to get him to actually line up to hit it right, because he has to hit it pretty much dead on for him to get stuck. So it's up to you. It's more of a thing to take advantage of an opportunity when it pops up, rather than being something you absolutely need to do to make the fight easier. Like, see, got him stuck again right there. And on this one, I think I'm actually going to get a horn break, because you can come in from behind the head with piercing weapons and actually hit the back of the horns, and it doesn't really tend to bounce as easily. But lots of charges, lots of hits. Another thing to remember with him is he will shout periodically, and he's got a very long range shout, so earplugs are very useful for him. When he digs down, if you can land a sonic bomb like I just did, it'll actually treat it like a pitfall trap, and that'll give you even more time to beat on his head. Now keep in mind, with pitfall traps and all that sort of stuff with him, pitfall traps specifically for Diablos are not a great idea. He can actually go up underneath them and destroy them. So what you end up wanting to do if you're actually trying to capture him is use shock traps. But he's a pretty straightforward monster. Realistically, like even from low rank to high rank, about the only thing that changes is his speed ramps up. And there's a subspecies that's Black Diablos, and yet again, all it really does is an exceptionally more aggressive sort of speed stance. Now, there is one sort of key difference in his head swing attack between low and high rank, which we won't see here because it is low rank. He'll do one or two swings and sort of finish out in low rank. In high rank, most of the time he does 3 successive swings. And if you've had the fun of running into Devil Joe, yeah, very similar to Devil Joe's attack where he starts swiping towards the ground and trying to bite at you. What you tend to find is certain body styles have very similar attacks, especially in the older games. The newer games where they have more complex models and rigging and whatnot, they've gotten to where there's a lot more kind of unique attacks between creatures, but back in the day, the basic moveset would stay pretty much the same if the rigging was the same, with a couple modifications. Like they would put in something to make the monster unique, but once you learned one basic attack pattern, you could start seeing it be repeated in other monsters, and it made it not quite so bad to kind of identify things. His tail is a good target to go after because getting that actual tail cut is a bit of a challenge on him because he doesn't tend to keep it down low super often. Now, usually monsters with tails, you hit them with a shock trap, they'll actually drop that tail really low, and that's a good opportunity to actually try to cut it off. Or what you can do is, I think, if I've figured this out correctly, you see that little dip at the end of the tail? That seems to be the attachment point between the tail model and the torso, and as long as you're hitting beyond that spot, for most monsters that will actually count as the tail, like doing damage to the tail, even though that's not necessarily where the cut occurs. So you can hit right in that spot, and eventually you'll get the tail cut. The problem is it's not a super clean spot to hit for it, but with certain low hitting weapons, that's about all you can really go for. And the reason why I say it's not a super clean spot is because since you're trying to kind of hit at the spot where the tail and the torso join, sometimes you're going to end up hitting the torso. And if you're trying to break multiple parts, or you want to go through and actually try to get all the parts broken, not a big deal on Diablos because he doesn't have a super huge or super low health pool. But in some monsters, the sum of the damage for all their parts basically ends out causing enough damage to kill them. So you don't really have the opportunity to actually break every single piece on them. But I don't think that's an issue with Diablos. I'm pretty sure if you really wanted to, if you're just a little bit careful, you can usually break everything on him. And there we got the first horn break. One of the tricks with him, though, is you get 2 horn breaks. And yet again, low rank, not quite as big of a deal to get both of them because there's not as many super rare parts that you actually need for the low rank pieces. But when you get to high rank, you will absolutely want to start trying to get both horn breaks to be sure you get the more rare variant of the horn break item. That's pretty much it for Diablos. He just digs around, hops up out of the ground, does some charges, does some spins, a little bit of a hip check, all the sort of stuff you would get to expect out of a model like this at this point. So I'll let the fight play out, and then I'll see you in the next one. Alright, now it's time to take on Nibelsnarf. Despite the kind of silly name, he's actually a pretty cool monster. When you are fighting him, you'll notice these little mounds all around the desert, but if you look for one that actually has little air sacs popping up out of it like this one does, that's the mound that he's hiding under. It's a pretty cool little ecology feature that they work in for him. And he will actually try to spend most of his time at least somewhat immersed in the desert. There's one thing you can do to actually make this fight significantly easier, and that is if you have the materials, bring them with you to keep constructing barrel bombs. Because anytime he hops up and swallows one like that, after a couple seconds it'll pop, and it pretty much acts like a shock trap. Or not a shock, but a pitfall trap. Then you can actually throw a fishing line at him and fish him out of the ground. And get an even bigger extended opportunity to beat on him, because his underbelly is actually one of his most sensitive spots. But I'm usually trying to go up to the head and actually hit the little uvula thing on him. You can actually break that. It's a little bit of a pain to get broken. You catch him with his mouth open, you get the opportunity to hit it. It will eventually break, but if you're not too worried about that and you're just wanting to kill him, then just going ahead and wailing on his underside is a good way to do it. You can also break the little gill slits that come out whenever he's blowing the sand out, and you can break his paws. I'm not 100% certain whether or not you can get a tail break on him offhand. I cannot remember, but he's not a hard one to actually get the parts to break. He's a hard monster to get the opportunity to hit the parts. But if you notice, the Shakalaka's actually dropped a bomb in the background. So if I had noticed that myself, I could have run over there and tried to hit him with it. You can also use sonic bombs to pop him up out of the ground. It's just not quite as easy. I believe if you hit him with a sonic bomb, he'll actually pop up, lay sideways, and you can get straight access to the uvula to break it. When you see him sucking in the sand, just run up, stand behind him, and you can kind of rotate along with him and actually get some really good hits on him. Truth is, Nibelsnarf is one of the easiest monsters in the game to fight. Why they kind of hold off on having you go up against him until so kind of late in the game, like you don't fight him at all offline, and you are almost to high rank by the time you really need to take him on in online. And I say online, but it's really Village versus Hub, because I'm not playing in a place where I can actually play it online. But I guess you could, in theory, take him on immediately after you get into high rank, but he would have been just fine not terribly far after something like Jaggy. He's got a couple interesting mechanics in the sense that he spits that sand all over the place, but as long as you're kind of staying close to him, it's not going to be a big deal. You just have to watch out for him to wave his gills like that to know that you need to clear out from behind him. Now, granted, if you're close to him and you can't quite get far enough away to outdistance it, you can actually rotate around to his face. And as long as you're actually in front of him, then the sand being blown out won't hit you. The problem with being in front of him, his main means of attack is biting, and so it opens you up for one of his bites. But when you see him tracing off in the distance like that, he's probably going to spin around and come after you. So it's a decent opportunity to go ahead and drop a bomb, but sometimes you get unlucky and he spins around and does that. But if you just wait long enough, he will actually turn around and charge at you. I'm pretty sure the AI for the monster is built in such a way where if you have a bomb dropped and you're standing far enough away from him, he charges you. Now, the only issue you might run into is those little fish-looking things swimming around him. Those are called Delix. And they can be really, really annoying in the sense that they like to spit sand at you as well. And they can actually pop your bombs by hitting you with one of those things. So when you drop your bomb, you're going to want to run back a little bit so that if they decide they want to come mess with you, they don't end up accidentally hitting the bomb. But yet again, relatively easy fight. Just keep fishing him out, beating on the belly, and eventually you'll get all the different parts on him broken that you want. He has a drop, I think it's Vivid Fluid. I can't remember exactly. That is usually the one that you really want off of him, because offhand at this exact moment, I can't remember the stuff that you use it for, but I do know that ended up drawing me in to have to actually fight him more than once later on in the game. And as with Diablos, at this point, I'm going to let the rest of the fight play out since this is the first time it's popping up, and let you sit back and enjoy. Alright, so we're back at it with the repeat fights, and that being Giganox, and he's annoying, so I'm not going to dive into him again. Hate him, take him out, try not to have to fight him any more than what you need to. The screams get really irritating, but now it's on to actually one of my favorites, Agnaktor. This guy is one that back in the day, for some reason, I became hyper-focused on getting his lance, and it's at least partly because it looks really cool. You have to fight him in the volcano, and he has one gimmick to him that actually can make his fight a bit challenging. You can see all the spots covered with lava. The problem is, in order to actually break that part, you have to first clear the lava off of it. If he spends too much time outside of the lava, those little spots on him will harden up. And if you don't have a weapon with really high sharpness, you won't pierce through those parts. So you have to either wait for him to dig into the ground or hope he goes and stands in lava to warm back up and soften those parts again. Or get it broken off. It can be a bit of a pain to actually get part breaks on him. And you pretty much need to kind of plan out what you're going after with him. Like if you want to get the beak, then you need to be focusing the face at first. If you want to get the tail, you need to be focusing the tail first. You're probably, because of having to actually break all the stuff off and just do an incidental damage to him along the way, not going to get more than a couple part breaks on him in any given fight. So you really sort of need a plan if you're coming in to actually try to farm parts off of him. He has some cool stuff going on if you've been paying attention in the background though. Like, he is a Leviathan model, so he does the normal Leviathan things, which includes a little scoot to float across the ground. But what he's doing right now is actually probably one of the coolest things about him. He'll dig into the ground, pops back up, and he tries to pop up from underneath you, but then he goes into the ceiling. And it can be a little tricky with the way the cameras work to actually keep track of where he's going into the ceiling. But when he is actually up in the ceiling itself, if you watch, when he's starting to come back out, you can actually see some evidence on the ground if he's coming out near where you're at. But as long as you move a little bit, usually you're okay. Like if you're not just standing completely still, you're going to be fine during these attacks. And when he's coming up from underneath you, you can clearly see the spot on the floor that he's going to break through. Now, it seems like it might be annoying him doing this over and over again, but it keeps the lava on him softened, so it lets you actually get the attacks in. Now, it does get irritating when he jumps up in the ceiling, and it takes a moment before you can fight him again. But what you're hoping for is that he's actually going to pop up halfway out of the ground, rather than popping all the way out like he did just then. But we'll see that in just a bit. So, the safe places to focus on with him are the rear legs or the front legs, because he does have a couple scoot attacks that can hit you, but they don't do a lot of damage whenever they actually hit. And he has a lot of movement things where he'll just kind of catch you and drag you along with him. Like, he'll do an attack where he steps forward, slams his head into the ground, step forward, slams his head into the ground. His feet won't hurt you during that, but they will, if you position just right, keep dragging you forward, so you can just kind of keep beating on him. Keeping track of his tail, it's actually one of the harder tails to get, not necessarily because it's hard to hit, just because it's kind of hard to keep in front of him. And you can get a chest break on him, and that's actually probably one of the easiest ones to get, because, like I said, you can kind of wedge yourself up there and he'll drag you along with him. I think this is one of the more enjoyable fights, but he has not done... There we go. That move is the one that's actually his big super move, and this is the one that will potentially one-shot you in higher difficulties. When you see him come up and he's only got half of his body out of the ground, you need to probably make a beeline to get over next to him, or put your weapon away and get ready to Superman dive through a laser. If you're good at rolling or dodging, you can dodge through it too. I've done it before doing back hops on a lance, and it's not hard, it's just the timing is a little tricky because it's kind of quick. See, like he'll sweep around, and if you're close enough, which, yeah, then you're fine, it'll go over your head. Sometimes he just shoots it straight forward. So if you're up next to him, that's a good opportunity to get some free hits in. And it's one of the reasons why I just kind of suggest putting your weapon away when he digs down in the ground. That way you can run over to him if you need to and get a draw attack off. If you're a greatsword user, I would imagine he's actually a pretty straightforward fight because he likes to position himself and pause for just a moment. So as long as you can kind of figure out where he's going to pop up at, you can position yourself to hit him. And here's a point where his body got hardened. It's been a little bit too long since he dug into the ground or stepped on the lava, so everything hardened up. But you'll see once he popped in the ground and come back out, he's back to actually having the softened lava on him. So that makes it a challenge to actually get the part breaks. But overall, I think he's one of the cooler monsters. I actually think he looks really cool. And as far as Leviathans go, I'm kind of surprised they didn't bring him back. I know the outcry was for Legiacrus, but this guy fits into the modern games a lot better because he's not dependent on water mechanics to fight. I actually hope that they bring him back in the expansion to Wilds because I feel like he'd be a pretty cool fight to have in the game again. I think they could do a lot with him because he was already really unique in this game. And so having better mechanics and better rigging and everything to use with him, I think it would be an outstanding fight. So I'm going to be quiet, let the rest of this play out just like the last one. So we're on to the final fight before we actually go into high rank on the hub as well. This is Double Trouble. So it's a Rathian and a Rathalos. The fact that they've decided to make your step from low rank to high rank as a double monster fight should give you a hint at some of the stuff to come in the future. It does become a little bit more common to have double fights. Now, one difference between this and Wilds, if you're a new player to the older games, is in the older games, when you have a multi-monster fight, each monster's health pool is lowered in a certain amount respectively. The only fight that I'm aware of they did this with in Wilds is actually the Proof of a Hero quest, and they reduced the first couple starting Apex's health a little bit and left Guardian Arkveld pretty close to 100%. I don't think he's at exactly 100%. But they kind of had to, or else that fight would have been nearly impossible for most people to actually finish it in time. Now, if you go into this quest and you're like me and you have a trouble figuring out where they're at, like they're just not popping up for you, you can run up to the egg area, this little nest here, pick up an egg, and they will come to kill you for bothering their nest. So, Rathalos popped up first, so he's going to be target number 1. I just need to actually get him paintballed. But the fight itself is not really any different, so I'm not going to go over the specific mechanics of how they fight. Instead, give you a couple tips at dealing with a 2-monster hunt, which I really don't do a lot of them myself. The older games are kind of questionable about how much damage monsters actually do to each other. I'm pretty sure they still do some damage to each other, but I don't think it's even remotely in the same realm as what they do in the modern games. So what you want to do is you get some dung bombs at the beginning of the chest in this one. You'll want to try to hit at least one of them with a dung bomb. It really doesn't matter which one you hit. It's just if you hit one, don't try to hit the other one. So if you're focusing on fighting, say, Rathalos, if you manage to hit Rathian with a dung bomb, then she will be the one to leave the area. And you want to just let her go and stay with Rathalos, and it'll narrow things down and make it a whole lot easier to deal with him. The thing you kind of might want to consider is bringing some bomb casings in, and the stuff to make more dung bombs, and the stuff to make more flash bombs. In low rank, I don't worry about bringing flash bombs with me for Rathian and Rathalos because they're not so hard that even though they spend some decent time in the air, it's still not that big of a problem. But in later ranks, once we also especially get the farm kind of up and rolling and we actually have enough backlog of materials to consistently make the stuff, flash bombs make their fights significantly easier, because as long as you don't whiff it like I did just then, you can knock them out of the air. So when they decide they're going to take a moment where they want to just hover around in the air and not actually fight you in a place where you can really get good hits in on them, then you can flash bomb them, knock them down, and then start welling on the head. Because the head is probably, bizarrely, one of the safest places to hit for them. Because what you can do is kind of tuck yourself back into their shoulder and actually turn and hit forward towards the head rather than back towards the body from directly in front of them. And most of the attacks they do with their head will miss you at that point. And it's actually a really solid weak spot for them. So, well on their head, flash them out of the air with flash bombs. Be sure you have some means of curing poison. And other than that, some dung bombs would be helpful on this because it gets really, really annoying when you have both of them together. Other than that, that's pretty much all of my tips for wiping out low rank in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. Now, next video, not quite sure how long it'll be, but that one will probably start going through one rank at a time, just depending on how the fights are. Like if it's a relatively easy rank, then we might do 2 in one video. But we are going to start digging into high rank, and things get a decent little bit more challenging at that point, because you don't really get nearly the same amount of supplies at the start of a quest. You don't even necessarily start at the camp at the start of a quest, and the monsters get increased health pools and attack values, so everything starts to get more fun and more in line with what you're probably looking towards whenever you hear about the challenge in the older Monster Hunter games. But it'll still be a little bit before we really start hitting any of the creatures that are actually the things that give Monster Hunter this sort of reputation of being a challenging game. But anyway, remember, as always, if I can beat it, so can you.
can eat